Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something truly fascinating today. The enduring financial success of Elvis Presley's estate really centered around Graceland. We've got some sources here that shine a light on how this isn't just, history. It's a thriving multi-million-dollar business empire decades later.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is looking at how does the impact of such a massive cultural icon translate into a business model that's not just surviving, but like still growing. So our mission really in this deep dive is to get into the engine behind Graceland's success, the strategies that keep the Elvis brand so relevant today. We'll dig into these sources you mentioned.
Right. So just to kick off, the scale is kind of amazing. The sources point out the Elvis brand, mainly run by Elvis Presley Enterprises, EPE, right?
EP, yeah.
It generates huge revenue. They say his music catalog alone, it pulls in over $100 million a year. Royalties, licensing.
Yeah, over 100 million annually. It's pretty staggering for an artist who passed away back in the 70s.
Staggering. How did this whole brand become such a force?
Well, that gets to the foundation, doesn't it? His timeless appeal. The sources really talk about this. It's not just nostalgia. It's a genuine, continuing cultural resonance. You've got the iconic music, rock, gospel, country, all blended together.
And that stage presence.
Exactly. That presence, the unique mix of charisma and maybe vulnerability. This whole persona, it just went beyond his lifetime. It kept influencing fashion, music, pop culture everywhere. That created this incredibly strong base for the brand, long term.
Okay, so you have this powerful brand foundation. How did his home, Graceland, become so central to the business side? It went from a private house to this major destination.
Well, that decision, made pretty early on after he died, was absolutely key. According to the sources, it wasn't just like opening a museum. It was creating a pilgrimage site. A real touchstone for the brand. And EPE's management, it's had a huge documented economic impact on Memphis itself. But what the sources really stress is how Graceland evolved. It wasn't static. They expanded, added museums, that whole entertainment complex across the street.
Elvis Presley's Memphis, yeah.
Right. Diversifying the attractions to offer new things, keep it relevant even for people who maybe weren't original fans. Bring in new generations.
So the financial model, this is where it gets really interesting and kind of complex. The sources say EPE's income streams are super diverse, not just Graceland tours and T-shirts.
Exactly. Beyond that huge music income we mentioned, the sources point to significant money from strategic licensing deals. His image, his name.
On everything.
Right, pretty much. Commercials, merchandise lines. One source even talked about some surprising modern partnerships, keeping the image kind of fresh and visible. And EPE hasn't just sat on the money. They've actively made strategic investments, even acquisitions sometimes, using that brand capital to grow the overall financial strength. They're actively growing the portfolio.
And they're still looking ahead. The sources mention future plans for Graceland, too.
Well, yeah. Continued big developments around the property. New attractions, more interactive experiences are planned. And a really big piece of this, according to the sources, is digital technology. Enhanced social media, maybe virtual tours for people who can't physically go.
Reaching a global audience online.
Exactly. And boosting online sales. It's all crucial for hitting younger demographics and just expanding the brand's reach everywhere.
And it's not just business, is it? His legacy still impacts music, pop culture today. You hear echoes in contemporary artists.
Absolutely. And his story, his image, it keeps resonating.
Right.
Influencing fashion, art, culture in ways that are, well, bigger than just entertainment.
So if we pull back and look at the big picture from these sources,
what you see is really a masterclass in taking a cultural legacy and turning it into a sustainable, growing business. It starts with that genuine cultural impact, no doubt, but it's kept alive and growing by really savvy, dynamic business strategies, from nurturing that physical place, Graceland, to smart digital moves and global licensing.
It's pretty incredible how this financial empire keeps going, keeps growing, and keeps the king's story alive for new people.
Which really brings up a final thought for you listening. Based on what we've discussed from these sources, what specific qualities or maybe strategic choices do you think were the most critical? What allowed the Elvis brand and Graceland to stay so relevant, so financially successful when many others from that time have faded? What's the secret sauce?